Hello and welcome to Psych 201, General Psychology Online. My name is Dr. Frohnbarger, but you can call me Dr. P. As you might imagine, sometimes folks have a difficult time spelling Frohnbarger, so Dr. P is fine. Again, welcome to the course. I wanted to just take a moment to introduce you to some of the basics of the course and how it's set up. So here we are on the home page of our course. And you'll see there's a welcome message from me. This is a picture of our textbook to help ensure that you have the right version. And then within my welcome message, you'll see several embedded links. So the first is for the syllabus addendum. That document will detail all of the specifics you need to know about taking Psych 201 from me. You'll also see a link to the course calendar, as well as a link to the week 1 checklist. So what you'll notice about D2L is that there are a number of ways oftentimes to navigate to the same thing. So for example, you could click on this embedded link to get to the syllabus addendum, or you could navigate to the syllabus addendum via the course content. So just to get you, again, acclimated to the course, I'm going to navigate to it just so you can see where it actually lives. So you'll start here and then click content. And you'll see that our table of contents is organized just like a table of contents in a textbook. And I tried to put the most important information at the top. So course information is super important. So we start with that. And here is that syllabus addendum. So if we click on it, you'll see that it breaks down the basics of the course, right? So it says who your instructor is. It has my office location. It has my phone number. That is my direct line in my office. Feel free to call. My email address, office hours. Again, feel free to stop by during my office hours. If for some reason you'd like to stop by during a time that's not listed there, shoot me a note or give me a call, and we'll set up an appointment just to make sure that I'm here and not teaching a class or something like that. Materials you will need. Basically, yes, you need a book, right? So you need a book. And that book needs to include an access code. So typically students will just go to the York Tech bookstore and purchase their textbook. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So you can do that by going to the York Tech website, which is yorktech.edu. Go to current students and then navigate to the bookstore, and you'll search for your course, which is PSY 201, and then you'll input the section number. So for example, it might be PSY 201 section 200. Here is a little tip. At York Tech, all instructors use the same book for Psych 201, so even if you accidentally choose the wrong section number, as long as you choose the right course number, you'll still get the right book. So basically, it doesn't matter whether you're taking Psych 201 section 200 or Psych 201 section 204 or 206 or section 7, it's all the same book, okay? If you choose to purchase your book elsewhere, it's okay as long as, I'm going to close this email that's popping up, as long as your book has an access code. The code is really important because it is what gives you access to MyPsychLab. And MyPsychLab is a required component for this course. So we'll talk a little bit more about MyPsychLab later. Attendance is often something that students have questions about in an online class. So our course is considered asynchronous, which means that we don't have a specific day and time that we meet. That does not, however, mean that we don't have deadlines, right? So if you click on the course calendar, which again, I'll show you here in a minute, it details what needs to be done on what days. And so I typically recommend not only printing that document, but using your smartphone or other device to set reminders of when you have assignments due, because completing those assignments is how I'm going to track your attendance and participation in the class. So if you're not doing the work, you're considered not attending the class, and that means that you can be withdrawn. Okay? If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask. Grading, I think, is pretty simple. You'll have 4 tests or exams. Each one is worth 15%. You'll have some MyPsychLab assignments. Again, that's where that access code comes in. And then your discussion posts, you'll have one of those per chapter. In addition to that, I've given you some extra credit opportunities. You'll notice that for each exam, there's an extra credit quiz. Those extra credit quizzes always close on the day before the exam opens. That's intentional. Hopefully, that will encourage you to engage with that content prior to sitting down and taking that exam. And it will hopefully get you in the habit of a little bit of distributed practice, which you'll learn about later in the course, rather than mass practice. So basically, we don't want you to cram. That typically doesn't work out well. Visitors and students aren't typically a concern because our course is online, so I'm going to skip past that. Exams are a big deal, right? So in an online course, students typically have lots of questions about exams. So your exams are required to be taken in a proctored environment, which basically means they have to be in a supervised environment. Typically, that's a York Tech Assessment Center, and we have 3. There's one here on main campus in Rock Hill. There's also one at our Indian Land facility as well as at our Chester facility. If you're thinking that you might want to test at the Indian Land or Chester facilities, be sure to reach out to them to make sure that you're familiar with their operating hours, because they are different than the operating hours of the main campus assessment center. If you're a student who is unable to make it to one of our York Tech assessment centers, please let me know that well in advance so that I can connect you with our distance learning department so that alternate arrangements can be discussed with you. But again, those arrangements need to be made well in advance. So again, if you're a student who lives in a location that makes it difficult for you to get to a York Tech assessment center, go ahead and shoot me an email as soon as possible. The next section just has helpful information on just kind of general support resources. So the York Tech Help Desk is for technical support issues. If you're having issues with Pearson and registering for Pearson, sometimes I can help you do a little bit of troubleshooting, but oftentimes you'll need to reach out to Pearson Tech Support, so that information is posted here. Academic integrity really speaks about York Tech Student Code and what your rights and responsibilities are. For me, the most commonly addressed issue related to the student code is plagiarism. So what I found is, particularly in online courses, some students will have a tendency to just want to copy and paste massive amounts of information from the internet, and that is completely unacceptable. That is considered plagiarism because that's not your work. Even if you're citing and referencing that work, the excessive use of quotations is, again, unacceptable. What we're looking for as instructors is a demonstration of your understanding of the content. And if you're quoting, at some point it becomes excessive and you're not really demonstrating your understanding. So if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Special accommodations. If you're a student who has any type of accommodation, typically the SRO office has already notified me of that. If you've made contact with them and you haven't received an update, feel free to follow up with either me and or them so that we can make sure that you have the support that you need. Your test dates are listed here as well. They're also, again, listed on our course calendar, which I'm going to show you here shortly. So those are the highlights of the syllabus addendum. That's the stuff that I think is probably most important, but I encourage you to print it, read it at your leisure. During this first week, I am going to ask you to take a little quiz on the addendum. That should be an easy A, right? Just to make sure that you're familiar with some of the basic policies and procedures of the course. So again, in D2L, you'll notice that there are multiple ways to get to the same place, and I think I've mentioned that before. But so I could use this trail here to click back to course information, or I could click on the Start Here link, click on Content, and navigate again to the same place. So I'm just going to use a little trail here to get back to course information. And as you can see here, that was our syllabus addendum. Here's the course calendar. Really important to stay abreast of the course calendar, again, because this is how I'm going to track your participation in the course. You'll notice that your assignments follow a pretty specific pattern. So Tuesdays are always going to be my Psych Lab assignment due dates. Thursdays are always going to be discussion due dates. And you'll notice we follow that pattern for the duration of the course with one exception, and that is because of election day, right? So because the college is closed on that Tuesday, I just moved those My Psych Lab assignments to the Wednesday. You'll also notice that your exams follow a similar pattern, right? So they always open on a Friday and close on a Monday. And as long as you complete the exam sometime between that open and close date, it's fine. You'll notice that the main campus assessment center has hours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Mondays, so any of those days would be acceptable. If you happen to know that you're going to have a scheduling conflict, if you let me know about that as soon as possible, I'll work with you to arrange an alternate date to take your test. Okay, so that is a quick look at the course calendar. I'm going to navigate all the way back to the table of contents. So again, we were just in course information. You've got PowerPoints for all the chapters, so you've got tons of notes. MyPsychLab, let's look at that. So we're going to click on this link. Notice when you click on it, it expands over here to the right. And you're going to access your MyPsychLab assignments via the assignment calendar. So the first time you try to click on this link, it's going to prompt you to set up and register for your account. So this is where you're going to enter the code that came with your book, set up your account. You'll only have to do it once, and then from that point forward, you'll just be able to click into the link and go directly into the assignments. So I'm going to click on this link. And you'll notice the MyPsychLab assignment calendar populates. So you'll notice on the dates where you have something due, again, they're always going to be Tuesdays with one exception, they're little clocks, right? So the first time you have a MyPsychLab assignment due, it's actually next Tuesday. So I'm going to click on the 28th. And notice when I click on this date, the MyPsychLab assignments that are due for that date expand over here to the right, populate to the right. So to access it and complete it, you just click on the link. Be sure your browser is set to allow pop-ups. And typically there's a little video to watch. So you would just click play, and then you would complete typically 1 or 2 questions, which are going to show or test your understanding of what you just saw. Okay. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to the table of contents. So that's MyPsychLab. Other things to point out. There's a little bit of APA formatting help. Most of you are familiar with MLA. Most students are not familiar with APA. So APA is the American Psychological Association's way of documenting sources of information. MLA is Modern Language Association. So psychology kind of has its own method for how you cite and reference sources. So there's a quick reference guide. I've created a cheat sheet here, which is super helpful. And it tells you exactly how to cite and reference our textbook. The reason I did that is typically for your discussion posts, your textbook is going to be your primary source of information. So I've shown you how to cite and reference it in APA style. So if we click here to make it super easy for you. So I'm not expecting you guys to become APA experts, but I do want you to give it the old college try, right? So it shows you how to cite if it's a direct quote. It shows you how to cite if it's a paraphrase. And it even shows you how to list a reference for our textbook. So I've tried to make it user-friendly for you. There's also in the APA section, go back there one more time, there's a sample discussion post so you can kind of see what it should look like, right? So notice you've got some citations and references from our textbook. Throw in a little example to really show off what you know. And at the end, a reference. So you can review that at your leisure. If you have questions about APA style, again, feel free to ask. I understand it's new. You've got study guides, supplemental videos, and then of course these instructor tool sections are just for me. Okay. One more thing I want to show you, or actually a couple more things. In this assignment section, this is where you can get to the discussion board. And you'll see there's a welcome message here from me. Again, if you click on that link directly in my welcome message, it would take you to the same place. Just another demonstration of how D2L gives you multiple ways to access the same information. So really just, get in there, take your time, be nosy, click around. You're not going to break anything. Back in the assignments area, I've also created checklists. This is another helpful navigation tool. So for each week, your student view will look a little bit different, but here's the gist of it, right? So literally, I've embedded these links, which will take you